Jnanam Satyam Jnanam Jyotir Aravinda Satyam Jnanam Satyam Jnanam Jyotir Aravinda Satyam Jnanam Satyam Jnanam Jyotir Aravinda Jyotir Aravinda Jyotir Aravinda. So there's a story, I think it was written by a writer from the ashram called Manoj Das, and the story goes that once a king who always traveled through the kingdom incognito just to inquire about the welfare of his subjects. He was once on a horse. He was dressed in ordinary clothes so nobody would recognize he's a king, and he was going through the kingdom, and it was about twilight and it started raining, so it was dark. But the king was used to these journeys, so he wasn't really feeling frightened. But out of the blue, a group of thieves surrounded him. They saw that the king was riding a very fine horse, and they thought they would steal the horse from the king. And from behind, a group of young men attacked the thieves and engaged them in a battle. And till then, the bodyguards of the king, who always traveled a little distance behind, reached the spot and the thieves were defeated. And the young men, of course, the king was very grateful to them, the young men who saved him. So he invited the men to his palace and said that, if you ask me for any boon that is within my limits to grant you, I'll grant each of you a boon of your choice. So one man said, I've led a life of great poverty, I would like wealth. So the king immediately gave him a big bag of gold. Another man said, I've always struggled to have a position in life, I would like to be a nobleman in your court. So the king said, granted. Another man said, I've always dreamt of a beautiful house. I would like you to make a beautiful house where I stay. The king immediately sent people to do that. Another man said, I always wanted to marry a very beautiful girl, and the king's jester had a very beautiful daughter. So that girl was given in his hand. And the last one came forward and he said, since I was a little boy, O king, I've heard all the beautiful stories of how you've been kind and helpful to people, how courageously you've defended the kingdom. And I've always dreamt of being able to serve you. So I'd like you to come to my house one day every month. Be my guest and let me serve you. And the king was like, this is a very strange request, but he said, I'll grant you any boon. So he had to go. Now the king can't every month live in a dilapidated hut. The young man wasn't rich. So because for the rest of his life it's not going to be just one visit. So they sent immediately architects to build a beautiful mansion for where the king could stay. Then the road to the village where he stayed was kind of not nice. So they got a lovely, because every month if the king has to go through that road, it has to be made nice. Then there was a rule that the king can't stay overnight at somebody who's not a nobleman. So they gave him that position. Then there had to be somebody who looked after the king, no? Because once a month, if the king's going to spend. So then they immediately got the king's daughter married to him, because the king's daughter would understand how the king. So in asking for the king, this person got all the boons the others asked for. So it's obvious this story carries a message for us. Who's the king for us? The divine, right? We are always asking life for success, good relationships, popularity, everything else. Baba, don't sit in the passage. Why don't you come here? Then, because come. We are always asking the king for boons and other things, but if we ask the king for himself, then everything comes. But the whole point is, that's where sincerity comes in. The topic, Mother's given the most beautiful definition of sincerity. She says that sincerity is to integrally want only the divine. Now, integrally is the key word. Of course, our psychic being always wants the divine. The mother says that even when in your outer nature you're running after 100 things, your psychic being is always turned towards the light, like a sunflower to the sun. So, but the point is, we are not made up only of the psychic. We have the mind, we have the emotions, we have the body, and all those are always wanting other things. So, sincerity is to convert ourselves integrally so that all parts of us only want the divine. Now, what is it to want the divine actually? For those of us who are turned to bhakti, okay, it's good we say we want the mother, which is terrific, but the divine has so many facets. The divine could be reaching out for the truth behind appearances, for a person who pursues the path of Gyan, right? He wants to know what this meaningless of the world is all about, because if we look at the world just as it is, divorced from the divine, with all the old age and sickness and death and stupidities of human nature, it's quite likely that a lot of us feel there's no point living, right? Because it's the same repetitive cycles going on. So those who want to know the truth behind things, that's one way of looking at it. Or just to come home to the truth of what we are, to want that. And that's why it's, you know, the foresights that drove the Buddha to leave his home. We all know that story. He was brought up shielded from any kind of unhappiness because his parents didn't want him to pursue the path of spirituality as was predicted at birth. But when he was going through his kingdom, he saw an old man for the first time in his life, and he asked his charioteer Channa, "Who's that?" So Channa said, "Old man." He said, "Channa, will you also grow old? Will I also grow old? Will my father also grow old?" And Channa is saying, "Yes." So little Siddharth, Prince Siddharth, his ground is slipping. Then he saw a sick man, bent over, very sick. So again he asked, "Will I also get sick? You also, father also?" Channa said, "Yes." Then he saw a dead man. And again the answer was, "Yes, we'll all go through this." So little by little his ground is slipping. Last he sees this sage meditating below a tree with a glow on his face. So these four sights stick in his mind, and he returns to his palace, the questions churning in his head: why do human beings suffer, and what is the way out of it? So actually this is the crux of it. We will suffer, and that's the answer the Buddha finally found, right? After leaving his house and searching, he says human beings suffer because of desire. Not that desire is bad, but when we desire the world isolated from the divine, when you desire an object or a person for the sake of that person, divorced from the divine reality that the person is, then you're moving away from the divine truth, right? When you want anything, seeing it as separate from the divine, you're forgetting the divine essence it embodies, right? And the nature of the world is such that anything you desire will come to you and will go out of your hands. That's the way the world works. It's impermanent. While you try to hold on to it, it's going to slip out of your hand. And the more attached you are to it, the more you'll suffer when it goes away. So it's logical, it's not just airy-fairy statement, it's logical to know that the more you desire something, the more likely you are to get attached to it when it comes. And how much you get attached to it, you will suffer when it leaves, right? The only thing that won't leave you is the divine, right? So it's logical and it's intelligent to be attached to the only thing that will not leave you. So sincerity is not asking you for a sacrifice. If you train your consciousness to want the divine more than anything else, you're actually training your consciousness to be happy, to be free. Because reaching out for anything else, getting obsessed with it, getting attached to it is going to cause you pain in the long run. So Amay had a very interesting story during the week. Would you like to come, Amay?
Yeah. Yeah. So what I went through was it wasn't very significant if you look at it from a third person. But so what happened was I had given my car for an insurance claim, and by the time I received it, I checked the car, everything was in place, everything was denting, the painting, everything was in place. But just by chance, I happened to ask the insurance agent to show me the spare tire, the stepney at the back, which is normally unused for new cars. And surprisingly, I found out when he showed it to me, I found out that it was a used tire in place of a new one. So that got me furious, and I didn't know what to do, because the car had gone to multiple outlets, so I didn't know whom to hold accountable for the ordeal. Not knowing what to do, I was in a fit of rage for I think a couple of days or more, and frustrated, I just I decided that I will visit the center. At the same time, I messaged Anahita asking her what I should be doing. And her reply threw me off guard because I didn't. I was playing the victim card for a long time, and suddenly I was asked by Anahita to introspect as to what my learning is going to be from this situation. So that kind of shifted, the role from the role of a victim to one who's introspecting as to what's going on. So I came here, I sat here and meditated upon the question, which was what was my learning from this given situation. And after a few moments of silence, three things came to mind. The first one was the extent of my anger towards the person or whoever effected the theft was also revealing to me the extent of my attachment to the object that I had lost, or what was dear to me, so to speak. The second thing that came was I have lost only a small percentage of what I will have to lose at the time of death. Yeah, so it's going to demand a lot of, suddenly I'll have to let go of everything. Right now I've let go on only a very small thing, maybe something that wouldn't even matter to me. The third thing that came was that what I own owns me. So every time I possess something, it possesses me. I am bound by it. I am in bondage without knowing I am in bondage. So these are the three things that came. So my dilemma was that I've always seen God as a protector, and because I thought that way, I also felt that because I'm on the path, I'm immune to the evils of life. Like God is going to, be the protector, a protective shield around me that's going to protect me from the evils of life. And that kind of needed some adjustment, because I think that wasn't close to the truth. Had it been close to the truth, I wouldn't have been suffering as much as I did. With regards to that, the insight that I got was, God is a lot like Krishna standing at the side while Arjuna is on the battlefield. The protection that God offers is not so much like a protective shield, a physical kind of a protective shield, but more in the form of the light of wisdom that tells you how to act in a given situation. With regards to the topic that we are talking about today, it fits very well. Is that anytime you forget your true nature, you identify with something that you're not, you're obviously going to be agitated when you lose something that's going to be impermanent. If you're not with your permanent self, which is your eternal self, which is the divine within you, anything else that you identify yourself with, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. So that was my learning from this situation, from this event.
Thank you, Amay. And this is so beautiful because, and I saw so much grace coming to Amay, because his previous messages were angry at God, angry at this, angry at that. And he had to just sit with the divine, and I didn't have to give him a single answer. It all came from inside him. And that's how it's for all of us. If we are troubled, instead of giving in to the negative emotion, if we just sit with Mother and let her show us, see, it's not that when we are with Mother things won't go wrong, but what appears to be going wrong is actually going right. Amay's tire had to go so that he would come to this wisdom, right? And I think this wisdom is far more valuable than your tire, right? You can get another tire, but this is something that will change you for life in a small way or a big way. So, yeah, that's an important thing. When things go wrong, instead of playing a victim, always ask yourself, what can I learn from it? Sit with Mother and ask her, if you've played me this card, it's for a reason. You love me too much to lash me around pointlessly. Let me know what your reason is. What growth are you offering me to make through this circumstance? So Sri Aurobindo's words, to be entirely sincere means to desire the divine truth only, to surrender yourself more and more to the Divine Mother, to reject all personal demand and desire other than this one aspiration. Very difficult to do, especially when we are younger. Of course we have a million other desires, and I'm not invalidating them, but just keep it as a goal you can move towards in course of years. Because Amay said a very beautiful thing, whatever you try to possess possesses you, isn't it? Whatever you try to hold on to is holding you in a prison. So if you want the divine more than that object, I keep telling you even in previous classes that whenever something you really want, remind yourself you want the Mother more. Because deep down that is a truth. We always want the Mother more in one part of us at least. Maybe not in the vital or the mental. But the whole thing is to get that central aspiration of the psychic being to be the ruler. Right now our psychic being can't do much because we are living in our vital, most of us, very few of us even in the mental. Most of us are being pulled by our emotions. So even though something so powerful and beautiful is inside us, unless we transform our vital and the mental to sort of twin with the aspiration of our deepest, it doesn't have the power it could have in our life. So, this is the basis of divine life. I mean, it's so beautiful that if we start living in a way that we want actually in every moment the divine more than everything else that calls us, that's the beginning of a divine life. And if you look at it very superficially, you feel that's not possible for a human being. How can I want the divine more? For many people, it's like I'll do everything else in life. Then, if I have time, I'll sit and call to the divine. But that's why we all suffer, no? So beautifully, Kabir Doha, दुख में सुमिरन सभी करे, सुख में करे न कोई, सुख में सुमिरन करे तो दुख काहे को होए. We wait till we are brought to our knees, then we call to the divine, and the divine, being compassion, even then answers. But if we didn't wait for that to happen, even during enjoyment, to remind myself, yes, I'm enjoying this, but I'm not going to get attached to it, because it won't be there tomorrow, it won't be there week after, it won't be there month after. What's really going to be with me is the mother. What's really going to be with me is the God self. And then you'll say, big deal if she's there also with me, but how does that make a difference to my life? I'm playing the devil's advocate. I don't really feel this at all. But that's the way we think, no? That big deal, even if she's with me, how does it make a difference to my life? I can't sense her or feel her. Whereas if I get the company of that girl I like or that friend I like, it's concrete. It's something I have tangibly. So it makes rational sense to me to desire that more. But the point is that if you start living this, or you glimpse this even for a moment, that all of you really wants the mother, you get filled with so much joy and freedom and lightness that you'll find it stupid to say that, so what if she's with me? If you're saying that, she's not really with you. Because if she's with you, you cannot say so what, because it changes the whole game. After that, you're never lonely. After that, you're never dependent on anyone, because she's just there to fulfill everything in your life. You're never short of company, because you love being alone, because then you're in her company. In fact, you start looking forward to time when there are no people and you're just alone with her, because the fulfillment you feel then, nobody's company can give you. It's something really worth working towards, because once you have that, you're free of the world. Mother says that the world will hold you so long as you're given to it. Because if you're invested in the world, like Amay's story, like all of us, he was invested in a car which had everything in place. And so long he was attached to the idea of that, losing that made him unhappy. Like that, everything we are attached to at some point has the power to make us unhappy. So much nicer if we get attached to something else, which has the power to only make us happy. The more attached you are to that, you can't be unhappy, because it will only give you more and more joy and freedom. And once you have that, if something else doesn't give you what you expect, you're not really disappointed, because you're not that heavily invested in it in the first place. Something can hurt you if you invest yourself into it. But if a large chunk of your investment is in the divine, and whatever your concept of the divine is, whether it's truth, peace, the mother's face, love, light, your higher self, the more you're invested in it, the more it safeguards you against the wounds life gives you. So Rumi says it so beautifully. People fancy that they are enjoying themselves, but they are really plucking out their wings for the sake of an illusion. You think you're enjoying yourself and getting attached to this and that, but you're plucking out the wings, the spiritual wings you have, for the sake of an illusion. Everything you get attached to in that sense is an illusion, because it's not going to last. I keep repeating Mother's words, and I'm very sorry for the young ones here, but you'll see the truth of it through life. She says that no human being is ever going to be there for you. Every human being will let you down. Only the divine is for you if you are for the divine. So don't be too, value human beings, love them, enjoy them, but don't expect them to be your be all and end all. They can't, and they will disappoint you if you place that heavy demand on them. Yeah? Mother's words: when at any moment, whatever may happen, the being has given itself to the divine and wants only the divine will, then no matter what is going on in the being at any moment, whatever, always, the whole being in perfect unanimity can say to the divine and feel for the divine, let thy will be done. When it is a spontaneous, total, integral, then you are sincere. But until this is established, it's a mixed sincerity, more or less mixed right up to the point where one is not at all sincere. So, very rarely do we integrally say, let thy will be done. No, we always want to direct God. Our prayers are directions to God. Give me this, let this work out this way, let this. Very rarely we can say, let thy will be done. But to be able to say that also is a facet of sincerity. That whatever you do, let thy will be done, and I have enough faith in you to know that however my mind judges it, it will only work out for my best. So, the question is to be sincere. If you are not sincere, do not begin yoga. Mother says it so beautifully. If you are not sincere, don't begin yoga. Sincerity is perhaps the most difficult of all things, and perhaps it is also the most effective. The most effective to get you close to the divine. And what is the central core of sincerity? From what we've discussed so far, what would you say is the central core of sincerity? Surrender, trust. What else? What else? Yes, to integrally want the divine moment to moment of your life. To whatever you're doing, the thrust of your being is, I want to feel the divine, I want to be with the divine, I want to give myself to the divine. If that happens, then you're sincere. Or even recognizing that, yeah, actually I am so pulled by the world that right now I want this face of the world and I want it more than I want you. And to tell mother that and say that right now it's like this, I want this more than I want you. But I know that that is only going to cause suffering, because the moment I want something more than I want the divine, 1 month later, 1 year later, it's going to change. So I will suffer. So ask her that, change it. Let me want you more than I want this. And that's the key to sincerity, to always remind yourself that deep down you want the mother more. And even in your outer being, change my aspirations so that I want you more than I want this. The question is to be sincere. If you're not sincere, do not begin the yoga. If you have perfect sincerity, you're sure of victory. It is infinitely difficult. Sincerity consists in making all the elements of the being, all the movements, all parts of the being, all of them have one single will: to belong to the divine, to live only for the divine, to will only what the divine wills, to express only the divine will, to have no other source of energy than that of the divine. It's a very, very advanced stage to reach here, but it's something we can aspire towards. So beautiful to have no other source of energy than that of the divine. We are so far away from it, no? So much of our energy is invested into our friends, family, people. If they treat us a certain way, we get energized. If they don't treat us a certain way, we lose our energy. But so beautiful if I get all my energy only from the divine. I'm looking, and Mother says it, that expect nothing from anyone, expect only from the divine, then you won't be disappointed. Because the moment you expect from people one way or the other, you get disappointed. And it's not their fault, that's how the design of life is. And you find there is not a day, not an hour, not a minute when you do not need to intensify, rectify your sincerity, a total refusal to deceive the divine. The first thing is not to deceive oneself. One knows one cannot deceive the divine. Even the cleverest of the asuras cannot deceive the divine. But even when one has understood that, one sees that quite often in one's life, in the course of the day, one tries to deceive oneself without even knowing it, spontaneously and almost automatically. One always gives favorable explanations for all that one does, for one's words, for one's acts. That is what happens first. I'm not speaking of obvious things like quarreling and saying it's the other one's fault. I'm speaking of very tiny things of daily life. The moment you blame someone, you're not sincere. And that blame isn't even about guilt, not even blaming yourself. Sincerity is such a quest to grow that whenever things go wrong, instead of looking for people to blame, you ask yourself, Mother, why have you sent me this? How can I grow from this? What do you want me to learn from this? That is sincerity. I know a child who knocked against a door and he gave a good kick to the door. That's what we always do, no? The bichara door is there. You're unconscious, you bang into it and then you get angry at the door. The door can be any person. Maybe it's your unconsciousness tangoing with the unconsciousness of the person and there's a quarrel. But there's no point hitting the door. Look into yourself to see what growth you need to make so that such a quarrel can be avoided in the future. Mother says it so beautifully, whenever there's a quarrel, both parties involved have to be wrong. Even if one is in the right, there'll never be a quarrel. Even when you have passed the stage of the child, when you have a little reason, you still give the stupidest of all excuses. If he had not done that, I wouldn't have done this, right? If he had not done that, I wouldn't have done this. If she hadn't behaved so stupidly, I wouldn't have lost my shirt. We say that commonly, but there is growth to be made. But it should be just the other way round, right? What would be the other way round? Of if he hadn't done that, I wouldn't have done this. What do I have to learn from this? Her doing this and bringing out this reaction in me is showing me where I'm weak, where I'm ignorant. How do I change this to consciousness? Being sincere. This is what I call being sincere. When you're with someone, if you are sincere, instantaneously your way of reacting should be to do the right thing, even when you are with someone who does not do it. Yeah? Take the most common example of someone who gets angry. Instead of saying things that hurt, you say nothing. You keep calm and quiet. You do not catch the contagion of anger. That is being sincere. You don't catch the anger. You remain quiet. Not that you're a doormat. I keep repeating, if you don't get angry and you hold on to your peace, you'll find the right words to say to solve the situation. It's so true. It's a cliche, but there are very true cliches. An eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. But if you don't return that eye for an eye, your eye won't get damaged. You'll see things more clearly. You'll find the right response. You'll find a solution to stand up for yourself, protect yourself, save the situation, which will never come if you respond out of anger. You have only to look at yourself to see if this is easy. Mother says, it is quite an elementary thing, a very small beginning to know whether you are sincere. And I'm not speaking of those who catch every contagion, even that of course joking, nor of those who commit the same stupidity as the others. I tell you, if you look at yourself with sharp eyes, you will catch in yourself insincerities by the 100, not by tens, by hundreds. Even though, yes, even though you're trying to be sincere in your general attitude, you will see how difficult it is. I tell you, if you are sincere in all the elements of your being, to the very cells of your body, and if your whole being integrally wants the divine, you are sure of victory, but for nothing less than that. That is what I call being sincere. So Mother says to walk on the path of yoga, one of the most important qualities is sincerity. So we should understand what sincerity is, and for that we have to discover all the veils of insincerity that we hide behind, and catch them and see them and acknowledge them. When I say if you are sincere, you are sure of victory, spiritual victory, she means. I mean true sincerity, to be constantly the true flame that burns like an offering, that intense joy of existing only by the divine and for the divine, and feeling that without him nothing exists. So it's a beautiful state to constantly remind yourself that everything is the divine. So for example, something I try to do before I meet anyone, I remind myself, for example, if I'm going to meet Nash, I'm not going to meet Nash, I'm going to meet the mother in Nash's body. So sometimes of course I forget, a lot of the times I forget, but every time you interact with someone, to remember, don't get carried away by the Nam Roop Gun of the person. Mother's words, everyone is me wearing a silly mask. Make that a living fact of your life, that everyone is mother. So if this is mother, and to play a game with me, she is behaving in an odd way, she's still mother, right? Am I going to disrespect her? Am I going to hurt her? And if I do hurt a human being, I must remember I'm hurting mother, because I'm hurting the mother in her. So another practice I follow and I find very helpful, if ever somebody gets hurt because of me, first I go to my altar and I apologize to mother, because I've hurt mother in that person. And the moment I do that, something magical happens. The whole energy between me and that person changes, and more often than not it gets sorted out. One thing, people don't get used to living with enemies. That's not a nice way to live. I mean, I know the world teaches you people are like that and you have to show, but anyone who's an enemy in your mind has an energy cord of negativity to you, and that cord is going to harm you energetically. So as far as possible, clear enmity in your mind at least. What that person does is that person's journey with mother and that person's journey through life. But at least in your inner space, try not to have a mind which is okay with having enemies. So beautiful, no? That line of Sri Aurobindo, my rival's downfall is my own disgrace. I look at my enemy and see Krishna's face. So it's like that. Don't leave residues of resentment and enmity, because they'll either come back to you in this life or next life. The more you resolve it, the more you're free of those energetic and karmic prisons, which will sooner or later catch up with you. The intense joy of existing only by the divine and for the divine, and feeling that without him nothing exists, that life has no longer any meaning, nothing has any purpose, nothing has any value, nothing has any interest, unless it is this call, this aspiration, this opening to the supreme truth, to all that we call the divine. Because you must use some word or the other. She's said divine. Many of us don't like the word God or divine. And Mother never used the word God because she says it has all kinds of but she has to use the word divine to say something. But she says it's not the word. Understand the truth behind what I'm saying. The only reason for the existence of the universe is the divine. Remove that and everything disappears. Sri Aurobindo's words. So somebody asked him about a sadhak who's not feeling help coming from the gurus. So Sri Aurobindo is replying, if he cannot receive help from a distance, how does he expect to carry on the yoga here? Here meaning in Pondicherry when they were in their body. This is a yoga which does not depend upon verbal instructions or anything outward, but on the power to open themselves and receive the force and influence even in a complete silence. So he said, he summarized the yoga. Sri Aurobindo and the Mother's yoga is all about receiving an influence, a vibe, an energy. It's not formulated so much in words or teachings. Words or teachings are there and it's helpful to read that. But a lot of their yoga is taught through their influence. Like since Samay has just shared, he didn't think this from his mind. He just opened to their influence and their influence formulated these thoughts in his being. He didn't read it in a book. I would have damaged him if I told him these words myself, right? When he's all angry and I would have told him the same things, he would have rebelled against it. He'd have said, how dare you say that when I'm feeling like this? But when he sat and it came from within him through an influence, that's what really taught him. So their yoga is about this influence more than anything. This is a yoga which doesn't depend upon verbal instructions or anything outwards, but on the power to open themselves and receive the force and influence even in a complete silence. Those who do not receive it at a distance cannot receive it here also. And that's true. If you don't have that opening, Mother, Sri Aurobindo has written that even if the Mother is standing in front of you, you won't recognize her. And if you have that opening, wherever you are, you'll feel her presence. Also, without establishing in oneself calm, sincerity, peace, patience and perseverance, this yoga cannot be done. For many difficulties have to be faced and it takes years and years to overcome them definitely and altogether. So this is the first foundation for yoga: calm, sincerity, peace, patience and perseverance. Next subtitle is to want what the divine wants. Question to Mother: your love for me is my true refuge and soul strength. What I offer you, my Mother, is a turbid mixture of which I am ashamed, but which you alone can purify. It's true for all of us. We are all a turbid mixture, but I'm still offering it to you because what else do I do with it? Mother replies, my very dear child, whatever is the nature of the offering, when it is made with sincerity, it always contains a spark of divine light which can grow into a full sun and illuminate the whole being. You can be sure of my love. You can be sure of my help, and our blessings are always with you. So she's saying, whatever mess in your nature you're offering it to me, if you're offering it with sincerity, I will accept it and work on it for you. What does it mean to offer with sincerity?
So maybe not having
Huh?
need to control. Like suppose if you're offering something, just
Offer it to her.
and don't direct the results.
Don't direct the results. So when you offer her a situation, at initial stages we are asking her to make the situation go in your favor. But sincerity comes when you say the situation is bringing out this negativity in me, and so long as I feel that negativity is justified, I'm not being sincere, because I'm not giving it to mother. No, I should really feel that that person was unconscious and she brought out all this toxicity, poison, anger in me. And so long as I keep saying she deserves it, of course I'm going to be like that if she's going to be so stupid, I'm not being sincere. Instead, if I say, mother, she is what she is, that's her journey with you, but she has triggered all this toxicity in me, I don't want it inside me, I really want you to take it away from me. If that sincerity is there where you want to give it to her, and give it to her with love, I'm giving it to you because I love you and I trust you, and I trust you to do with my life what's for my best. So sincerity has two ingredients. One is honesty in looking at yourself and not being dishonest in holding on to things that are your comfort zones. Often negative emotions are our comfort zones. They are our identity. But you have to be honest enough to want to give that away. And to love mother enough that I'm giving it in good hands, in very capable hands. Whoever else wrongs me, I know you will never wrong me. So I'm giving it to you. You do with it what you need to do. To want what the divine wants in all sincerity, the mother says, is the essential condition for peace and joy in life. Almost all human miseries come from the fact that men are nearly always convinced that they know better than the divine what they need and what life ought to give them. So sincerity is constantly living with this, that in my life at every moment mother is working out her will, and I'm going to let her without interference, without getting in the way. So very interesting. I met a friend recently. I met her after many years, and really we are living in a very special time when Mother and Sri Aurobindo call it the hour of God. You really see awakening happening all over. She lives out of India, and she just a normal housewife doing things. She just stumbled into a practice where she started watching her breath, something as simple as that. But obviously she had a lot of past life. It started a whole journey for her, and she described experiences like one. She told me that she couldn't open her eyes because she just saw white light everywhere, and like there was no vision, just white light everywhere. And after that passed, for 3-4 days she was on cloud 9. It was just like so much happiness all the time. So what mother says, that in this time, if anyone takes one step towards the divine will take 9 steps towards you. So this awakening is happening in human nature. It's the hour of God, because Sri Aurobindo says it's Kali Yuga. Most people are turned away from light. But for those who are turned to the light, it's a time of unprecedented spiritual growth for them. So let's not waste this chance. Make it your priority. It shouldn't be that I'll do everything else and then if I have time. Not like that. First I will do this. If I do this, everything else in my life will get aligned. So I was telling you, sorry, I took a detour into this. So she said after she had one of these experiences, she worded it as everything I thought came true. That I found odd. So I told her, tell me how it happened. So she said, I got into the car with my daughter and we were planning to go to one restaurant, but out of the blue, it came to my mind that no, take a U-turn and go to the other restaurant. And it turned out to be the place. Then something told her there's a car parking over there. So she went there. So I told her, it's not that what you thought came true, but when your mind was silent and it wasn't interfering, you were in sync with the divine will which was acting through you all the time, which is all the time guiding you, that go to something as small as go to this restaurant, go here, go there. But when we are overthinking, we don't hear that divine will, and we try to direct, like I've heard this restaurant is the best, so I will go there. But the divine will is guiding you somewhere else. But when you're noisy, you don't hear that divine will, but it's guiding all of us if we just silence our mind. That was the point of telling you this. And then life becomes so easy, no? Otherwise, over every little thing, we have to think so much, do so much. But it's so beautiful if we are in sync with the flow of life, and it just carries you. So this is a poem, The Mixed Offering. The churnings of my heart spewed out a mixed concoction to be offered to thee, spiked with the gin of earthly desires, darkened by doubts of the rational mind, with icy bits of fear thrown in. It was a strange mixture indeed, and yet if I dared to offer it to you, it was because I knew of your weakness for the one redeeming ingredient it contained, the love that absolved all the imperfections of the dubious chalice. Dubious is doubtful, chalice is cup. So the poet is saying that the churnings of her heart is offering the mother a cup. It is filled with a mixture of doubt and fear and everything. And yet she feels, normally we want to offer mother something beautiful. This cup is not very beautiful. But she's saying, if I dared to offer this to you, it's because it contained one redeeming ingredient, which I know you have a weakness for, love for you. So long as that is there, I have a right to give it to you. So in Savitri, there's a beautiful line. Love is man's lien to the absolute. Lien is right. I love you, so I have a right to you. Whatever else my imperfections, I have a right to you if I love you. So there's a very beautiful story. Many of you may be knowing it. It's in the vignettes of the mother, Shama Kumari. Beautiful book, huh? Do pick it up if you haven't. Little true stories that people encountered with the mother. So there's a vignette that once a group of pilgrims that time mother was in her body, and a group of pilgrims were heading towards meeting her. And they were excitedly talking about Annai. In South India, she's called Annai, and all the beautiful things about her. And there was a poor beggar close by, and he was listening to this story, and it was just drawing him, and he was coming closer and closer. And then he thought, wow, what a marvelous being this Annai seems to be. I wish I could meet her, but I don't have money to reach her. I don't have money for a train ticket or the means. So he went up to one of the travelers and took out a 1 rupee note and said that whenever you meet this Annai of yours, will you give her this note? So they said okay, and they put it away. And then they went to see the mother, and they were all talking, and suddenly this man remembered this 1 rupee note, and he was feeling a little bit was dirty and crumpled and like that, and he thought, how do I give mother this note? But he promised. So he gave mother the note. The mother held that note in her hand and went into a trance, and she figured out the whole history of how the note came to her hand. And she said, the divine will indeed find it very difficult to repay this. I mean, others bring her so many gifts and whatever, but the love, because that 1 rupee note could be his dinner. He gave it with so much love to a person he may never meet, who may never acknowledge his gift. Imagine sacrificing your dinner for a person you've never met, who will probably not in a concrete way say thank you to you. Only love can do that, right? And mother had, of course, in her wisdom, the capacity to recognize that love. And she said, I'll never be able to pay this back. The divine will never pay this, be able to repay this. Sincerity in practice, in the face of difficulties. How do you remain sincere when difficulties come your way? Sweet mother, when one has a difficulty in the day and it is not possible to see you or tell you about it, what should one do? If it is not at all possible, you must sit quite alone. Try to become silent. Call me as though I were there. Make me come and put the difficulty before me, absolutely sincerely and objectively. And then remain very silent, very quiet, and wait for the result. I think the result comes, for it depends on the nature of the difficulty. If the difficulty comes from one part of the being wanting one thing, and another part of the being knowing that one must not have it, then it becomes complicated, because the part which wants can try to introduce its own will into the answer. So when one sits down, first one must begin by persuading it to make a little act of sincere surrender. And it is here that one can make true progress, saying, now that I am conscious that it is this that I desire, but I am ready to give up my desire if that should be done. You understand what she's saying, no? It's a common thing. You know the world is pulling you in a direction away from the mother, but your desire for that is too strong. Then sit with the mother and tell her that this is my problem, help me with this desire. Sometimes it is easier when you write it down. This is very powerful. If you're ever troubled, sit in front of mother's picture, feel as if she's in front of you, and actually how you would talk to her, write it down. It's very powerful. You imagine that I'm there, and then take a paper and write on it what you want to tell me. Then just the very fact of formulating it clearly sometimes gives you the true picture of the situation, and you can have the answer more easily. It depends. Sometimes it is necessary to want what the divine wants, and sometimes it is necessary, sometimes not. But if you are in a confusion, a kind of whirlwind, above all, if there is a vital upsurge, the fact of compelling yourself to put it on paper already quietens you. It begins the work of purification. You'll find that by the time you've written it to her, something has already left you. Offering to Sri Aurobindo, to be able to offer my mind to Sri Aurobindo in all sincerity, it is not very necessary to develop a great power of concentration. Somebody asks that to offer my mind to Sri Aurobindo, shouldn't I have a great power of concentration? Will you tell me by what method I could cultivate this precious faculty? Mother says, fix a time when you can be quiet every day. That's important. If I've fixed that this time I'm going to sit, it's actually like the presence will come and wait to give itself to you at that time. So fix a time. Take one of Sri Aurobindo's book, read a sentence or two, then remain silent and concentrated to understand the deeper meaning. Try to concentrate deeply enough to obtain mental silence and begin again daily until you obtain a result. Naturally, you should not fall asleep. So that's a very good way. Before you meditate or sit quietly, pick any works of Mother and Sri Aurobindo, read a sentence or two, or read a page. Maybe one sentence will stand out, underline it, and contemplate it on how you can live it, what it means, and sit with that and go into meditation. It is quite possible for you to do sadhana at home and in the midst of your work. Many do so. So I'm repeating, while I've said that their yoga is through influence, one of the great powerhouses of their influence are their words. Sometimes you just read their words and something very concrete enters you like a vibration, like a force, like an energy, and starts changing you. So very, very recommended that before you meditate, just 5 minutes, read something of theirs and let its influence work on you during meditation. So they say it's quite possible to do sadhana at home and in the midst of your work. Many do so. What is necessary at the beginning is to remember the Mother as much as possible at the beginning of your work. If you're studying, at the beginning of your studying, just remember her. To concentrate on her in the heart for a time every day. If possible, thinking of her as the Divine Mother. To aspire to feel her there within you. Offer her your works and pray that from within she may guide and sustain you. This is a preliminary stage which often takes long, but if one goes through it with sincerity and steadfastness, the mentality begins little by little to change, and a new consciousness opens in the sadhak, which begins to be aware more and more of the Mother's presence within. So at the beginning of the work, start. And if ever you feel very hyper, very overwhelmed, put your work down, 2 minutes concentrate on her. At the end of the work, thank her. Beginning, middle, end, and you'll see how much better you'll do any work you do, any exercise you do, offer it to her. Do it for her, call her to do it through you. And I know that for the skeptical mind it seems too good to be true, but believe me, it's true. You will be guided in ways you can't imagine. The work which you feel, oh God, how will I meet this deadline? You invite her into it, you'll be amazed at how fast you'll do it and how efficiently you'll do it. One thing that can truly save. There is only one thing that can truly save you. It is to have a contact, even the slightest, with your psychic being. To have felt the solidity of that contact. Then whatever comes to you from this person or that circumstance, you place in front of that and see whether it is all right or not. Even if you're satisfied in every way, even if you say to yourself, at last I have found the friend I wanted to have. I am in the best circumstance of my life. Then put that before this little contact with your psychic being. You will see whether it keeps its bright color or suddenly there comes a little uneasiness, not much. Nothing making a great noise, but just a little uneasiness. You are no longer so sure that it was as you thought. So Even relationships, don't get carried away by the vital. Every person you are in touch with, when you think of that person, what is the contact in your heart like? If that contact diminishes, then the person is probably not as great for you as you think he is. If the contact grows, then it's the right. The psychic being will always tell you the truth. So I have a young boy I work with who's very, I think he was born with it, very in touch with his psychic being and very intuitive. So once when we were with a group of people, he said for this particular girl who we all found very sweet, he said that she's very sweet, but I don't know why I'm not feeling her energy is right when I concentrate here. And he says, I can't explain it because in her behavior, she was very sweet. There's nothing I can fault. But behavior can be an appearance. Energies will never lie. And it's the psychic being that has the power to recognize that. If you come to the spiritual life with a sincere aspiration, sometimes an avalanche of unpleasant things fall upon you. You quarrel with your best friend, your family kicks you out of the house, you lose what you thought you had gained, knew someone who had come to India with great aspiration, and after very long effort towards knowledge and even yoga, that was long ago. She's talking about a real incident. At that time, people used to put on watch chains and trinkets. She's giving an example. This gentleman had a golden pencil which his grandmother had given him, to which he was attached as the most precious thing in the world. It was fixed to his chain. When he landed at one of these ports at Pondicherry or perhaps elsewhere in India or at Colombo, I believe it was Colombo, they used to get into small boats and the boats took you ashore. And so this gentleman had to jump from the gangway of the ship into the boat, you understand. He missed his step, somehow got back his balance, but he made a sudden movement and the little gold pencil dropped into the sea and went straight down into the depths. He was at first very much aggrieved, but he told himself, why, that is the effect of India. I am freed from my attachments. Right? Something he was so attached to, but it was the atmosphere of the place where so many sages have practiced Vairagya. That's the effect of India. I'm freed of my attachments. It is for the very sincere people that the thing takes such a form. Fundamentally, the avalanche of troubles is always for sincere people because life is giving them a chance to grow through it. Those who are not sincere receive things with the most beautiful bright colors just to deceive them, and then in the end to enable them to find out that they are mistaken. So see, life is compassionate. It will hit you when you're ready to take the beating. If you're going to break with the beating, it's not going to beat you. It doesn't want you to break, right? It gives you a cross depending on how strong your shoulders are. True sincerity consists in advancing on the way because you cannot do otherwise. To consecrate yourself to the divine life because you cannot do otherwise. To seek to transform your being and come out into the light because you cannot do otherwise, because it's the purpose of your life. When it is like that, you may be sure that you are on the right path. So now we go to the last thing, which is Savitri. But in vain are human power and human love to break earth's seal of ignorance and death. His nature's might, his is Ashwapati, Savitri's father. His nature's might seemed now an infant's grasp, and we are talking about the yogi of yogi. Ashwapati was the yogi of yogi, and his nature's mind seemed like an infant's grasp. An infant can grasp very little, right, because its muscles aren't developed. But Ashwapati's nature's might was like an infant's grasp when he faced that spiritual immensity. Heaven is too far for outstretched hands to seize. Heaven is the divine truth. Sometimes it's too far for human hands to reach it. This light comes not by struggle or by thought. The brightest minds cannot get it by struggle or by thinking about it. In the mind's silence, the transcendent acts, and the hushed heart hears the unuttered word. You have to be quiet. Then you reach heaven, not by athletic spiritual efforts. You won't reach it. But if you just quieten your mind, the hushed heart hears the unuttered word. A vast surrender was his only strength. A power that lives upon the heights must act, bring into life's closed room the immortal's air, and fill the finite with the infinite. All that denies must be torn out and slain. All that denies this truth must be torn out and slain. That's rejection, right? His triple formula: aspiration, rejection, and surrender. Rejection is that part. All that denies must be torn out and slain, and crushed the many longings for whose sake we lose the one for whom our lives were made. Why is it that these many longings make us lose the one for whom our life is made? Because our whole life is about pursuing them, right? Then we have very little time and space to pursue the one for whom our life is made, because our whole life effort is to pursue all this, which is always going to let us down. Now other claims had hushed in him their cry. So Ashwapati has reached a point where all his spiritual power, it cannot touch that which he wants to reach. So then he gives up the struggle. He becomes quiet in his heart, and he removes all the longings, all the other things that pull him. Now other claims, so after this effort, other claims had hushed in him their cry. Only he longed to draw her presence and power into his heart and mind and breathing frame. Only he yearned to call forever down her healing touch of love and truth and joy into the darkness of the suffering world. His soul was freed and given to her alone. This is our freedom. When we can give ourselves to her alone, that's when we are free. Otherwise, all the rest that we give ourselves to, as Amai said, what we hold holds us. It's our prison. If we are freed of all that and given only to her, we are free. Somewhere else in Savitri, there's that beautiful line, "Forever love, O beautiful slave of God." Yeah? So we have to reach a point where we become this love which is free because it's enslaved to God, right? So, and crush the many longings for whose sake we lose the one for whom our lives were made. It's a line worth remembering. And crush the many longings for whose sake we lose the one for whom our lives were made. So this is a beautiful passage that shows how Ashwapati was brought to this point of sincerity where he wanted only the mother. Only he longed to draw her presence and power into his heart and mind and breathing frame. Only he yearned to call forever down her healing touch of love and truth and joy into the darkness of the suffering world. His soul was freed and given to her alone. So we'll end with a little chant that to my mind sums up sincerity. What is sincerity? I want only you. I want only you with my thoughts. I want only you with my emotions. With my psychic being, I always want only you. But that is sometimes an ineffectual wanting because it's hijacked by the vital and the mind. So this little chant is just this, tu hi, only you, only you. Okay, so let's gather ourselves. Let's be in our heart. Let's actually speak to the mother and see what it feels like when I make an experiment also and tell her I want only you. Just see what it feels like in the heart, even to say it, even if it's not true for me integrally, but just to say it, it reminds the deeper part of me of its truth. It reminds me of my deeper truth, where I'm a sunflower constantly turned towards the sun, wanting only her, only you. So I'll sing each line twice, second time with me. We've done it this whole week in our yoga classes, so those of you who know can join in. Tu hi, 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 tu hi. Everyone, tu hi, 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 tu hi. Same tune, so join me. Vahe Guru, Vahe Guru, Vahe Guru, Vahe Guru, Jaya Guru, Jaya Guru, Jaya Guru, Jaya Guru, Jaya Guru, tu hi, tu hi. And just stay in your heart with these two words, tu hi, only you, only you. Hands together in a namaste. Let's end with 3 ohms. Om.